Howdy everyone, this is Grakef. So here's the third video? There's a video! I believe this is the second video for our RP-1 progression. So what you're watching here is I'm making some upgrades to our Grasshopper 2. We've unlocked the science for the Aerojet as well as the XASR1 for the Aero B Whack Corporal line of engines. So what I'm doing here is just doing some tweaking and messing with some of the parameters, trying to get the aerodynamics as best as possible. And this is a very capable setup, and should you choose not to do the RD100 series engines, this can get you a long ways. And so here we go. I've got it all tuned up, and we're going to do a couple of contracts with it. So up it goes, flies really well. The best thing about the Aerojet is you get 3 seconds instead of the 1 second, so it's a much easier setup. So that's the liftoff, and here shortly then we'll come back for the landing. So here we go, coming back down. While we're waiting for that to come in and land, just a little bit of history on the Aerojet Aero B rockets. They were such a workhorse. I always forget how much they were used. There was over 1,000 launches of the Aero B rocket. The particular iteration that we're launching right now, they did about 21 launches. Well, they used the XASR1 engine across quite a bit of different models, whether for the Army or the U.S. Air Force and the NRL. But yeah, they used the dickens out of it, and just quite a bit of use over. Well, across that engine line, there's about 100 launches, so really popular launch. And it went from 1950. They used this engine all the way from 1950 to 1957 was the last launch on this particular engine. The AJ-1025, which is the next unlock, they did that in 1951, and that went from 1951 to 1956. So the XASR1 was a very popular engine. And so here we go. I did a couple of these launches. One was with payload, and the other was just a science one. And you're going to want to have a varied amounts of launches, right? Some are going to be science missions, some are going to be funds missions. You want to play both sides of that, especially in this early game where you're unlocking as much science as possible. Especially if you're doing both planes and rockets, because you're going to have 2 of those fields that you're going to need science points for. So pretty straightforward, and almost identical to the last one, and go up, and then we'll be going down here in just a little bit. And yeah, here we are, still having the issues with the spontaneous trying to blow itself apart under 4x time acceleration with the spin. I found spin stabilizing to be really useful, other than the fact that it's a problem when you're trying to go fast through there. But yeah, really great rocket. Unfortunately, it's not going to be enough. That particular test proved that I can't reach where I wanted to reach. So anyways, the next video is going to be here, and we're going to build our new rocket. So this rocket's going to be based on the RD100 series. Went through a lot of iterations and a lot of building, but decided, well, I started out at 2 meters. I really wanted to build it around 2 meters, but it ended up being a little on the heavy side. I don't have the unlock for the larger launch pad yet, so I'm just going through here trying some different stuff and working on that. But yeah, it's going to be based, I end up deciding on 1.8 meters. Typically, I know a lot of people will build their RD100s at 1.5. I like to build them a little wider and make them shorter. It does make them less stable. You typically want to be tall, not wide. But MechJeb does an okay job with flying it, with it being as wide as it is. And that saves you on tooling, because you'll want, for some of the later stages, you're going to want a wider 2-meter thing there. So what I'm doing there is I'm trying to find the most efficient tip. Sometimes it's sharp 1, sometimes it's peaked 1 or peaked 2. So play around with that depending on how your rocket's set up, how long your nose cone is. That's going to be a big deciding factor on there. So just looking at trying to set Kerbal Redux so that it shows me seconds. I don't like the fact that it shows you minute seconds. I wish it just show you seconds. So I end up having to, even though I installed Kerbal Engineering Redux, I still end up using the built-in one because I need to know the burn times for working with my engines here. So lots of fiddling, lots of adjusting going through there, and then I end up adjusting more. So you can see there it ends up too heavy, so I have to play around with it a little bit. And that was with steel tanks. With aluminum, you get a little bit more leeway. So fins, I need to learn something today. I need to revisit all my fins. If you remember, take off the trailing edge on your fins. That helps a lot with your aerodynamics on rockets. So I'll need to make sure I do that. They're okay fins on this particular build. I didn't get too crazy on it. And here we are. So that was the bottom half. I did a whole bunch of testing, skip y'all. But this is gonna be our first 2-stage rocket, like truly 2-stage rocket. And here I am. I'm building a boat tail to cover up that engine, and I believe I already have a boat tail on the bottom part. But the boat tails are really great for your aerodynamics, especially on your 2-stage rockets here. You can also do an interstage fairing, but you get the aerodynamics of the having the boat tail when you launch the second half too. Yeah, basically we're just going to build another Aero B on top of this one. I tried importing my Aero Bs, the Grasshopper 3 that we built, and it was just fighting me. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll just go ahead and rebuild it. So this is me doing that. There's a lot of stuff off camera, trying to mess around with the avionics cores and stuff too. At this point we have science cores unlocked, so I really wanted to use the built-in or the procedural avionics as opposed to the I'm having brain farts, instead of the actual modeled pieces there. So putting the fairing on the boat tail, and see there is the boat tail on the bottom. I decided that I want to spend the extra 1 fund so I can recolor them and make them all look nice. I'm not sold on the coloring. You may see a different coloring, and I was going for orange and black at one point, and I was like, well, blue is the complementary color, and that should look good. Just checking some stuff with FAR there, again, trying to get everything optimally aligned and make it as efficient as possible. If you spend a little bit more time in FAR, then you don't have to work as hard on that. Setting up science experiments here. I kind of goof on this because your science experiments should be in your top portion. I believe at this point I'm putting them in the bottom portion. You can't run the same science experiments on 2 different cores. So you want your heavier avionics core in the lifter phase, and that's going to control the all of the rocket, if not most of the rocket. So you can do a science core, which doesn't give you any control interfaces and just do spin stabilization, and that's kind of what I end up doing. I believe a lot of it got cut out, but and then your bottom can have your avionics, which actually has the control fins, has the vectoring for your engine and stuff like that. And that's a pretty good setup. When you get into a little bit more advanced rockets, you'll break it out by stages so that you'll have a near Earth core, lifter stage, and then possibly a transfer stage one that has a fair bit of weight tonnage allowance for it, but not nearly as much as the lower lifter stage had. And then finally you'll have your science core portion, that's your satellite or whatever you're trying to do there. So your the portion that does have the science on it. So I end up with this. I like the two-tone scheme. I think the line in between needs to be a little darker. It should be like a pure black. And I'm not sold on the blue or the orange. They feel a little pastel to me. I found out that I don't have enough money, so I go ahead and close that. One of those was the fact that I have this giant service module. I was tooling this in the idea that we could launch the RD 101 section without the whack corporal for heavy payload missions. But I also noticed that the avionics have a section for payload. So this feels like this is different from the previous ones. So you can just have your sounding rocket stuff in the avionics core. And that's how I would suggest you kind of design it. And that's what I end up doing here, is just changing some stuff around there so that I have the avionics core. Trying to save some weight. It's not a whole lot of weight, but you don't need any electrical charge in the bottom half. So it says it has to be greater than 0, so I keep selling it at 1 or 2, trying to get it to take there. But yeah, I don't have any real launches of this in this video. We're going to go over to a simulated launch here in just a bit, and we'll walk through that launch. So as I mentioned, I didn't have enough funds to do all the tooling, so we're going to do a quick out there and back. Still fighting the Cessna. I fixed the tires. I think it's a torque thing. Somebody mentioned that in one of the streams, that the torque of the engine's causing it to do weird stuff. I just go ahead and launch it and try and keep it. If it goes out in the grass, it goes out in the grass. And that seems to be working pretty well for me. So the Cessna's been a great little engine. And so there we go, and now we're heading back. I'm trying out nav HUD on this particular coming back in. It is helpful. I just kind of feel like you fight it a little bit as well. It's definitely telling me good information, but at the same time I'm like, whoa, I don't seem to be pointing in the right direction. I'm coming down weird. I get it down. I have another nice smooth landing. And there we go, and we get the funds so that we can go ahead and tool it. Alright, and this is the ultimate accumulation of how you turn 5 hours of video capturing into 15 minutes of video, just 14 minutes of video. So here we go. I'm also using MechJeb for this flight. I haven't completely figured out how to do this with MechJeb, but this is basically what we're going to try and do for realsies here in a little bit. So this is the simulated launch. We'll come out and just kind of make a low incline and then shoot off the second stage there, all nice and spinny, and everything worked out perfect. So anyways, this is Grakef. Remember, love is love. Stay safe and have a great day. Bye-bye.